I see you. Okay, I don't know if you see me yet, but I see you. I'm glad you're here. Hi. Um, yeah, I'll give a couple of more seconds for people to come on. You know, it's weird. I'm supposed to be at the center, which is my happy place. I love it. But today, I spent most of my time here on the coronavirus couch in my living room doing mostly writing, because mostly writing, and I figured I'll go and do more formal videos at the center and or at the studio. But today, right now, I am just so darn comfortable. It has been a wonderful day. It's beautiful in San Diego. I think you can tell if you look out at the picture window and see how bright it is. It's bright outside too. We have been very lucky here in our little corner of Southern California in the sense that our weather has been amazing. Technically speaking, I should be out wearing a pair of shorty overalls and tennis shoes and walking around the block. But instead, I've been thinking a lot about the community that we have forged here. Oh, hello, I see you, and thank you. It's good. It's always good to be here at the coronavirus couch, and even though we have more professional looking spaces so that you don't have to see my pile of books in the back, I like being here. This is where I live. This is my heart and my home. And when I talk about my metaphorical living room and my metaphorical kitchen out back, this is where I'm talking about. There is not a flat and round table in the living room, although there is one in the kitchen. There is a flat and oval, which I think counts. A flat and oval living room table right in front of me. So, you know, I'm still within the ethos. You know, the reason that I have been here all day is because I have been researching cults. What is a cult? One of the things that we've been dealing with here at Lason Race is part 2 of detractors and people saying Lason Race is a cult. Well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it deeply, and we're going to talk about it squarely. But I also have been wrestling with something else, and specifically, how much oxygen should I give this? How much oxygen should I give people who say a distinct no thank you, both to me, to the community that I founded, and to the ethos and the methodology upon which the community that I founded is based? You know, it's just so much more pleasant to talk to you, the people who have said yes, the people who have said yes to kind candor, the people who have said yes to North Star values and ethos. That is why I get up in the morning. It is to you whom I speak, so that you can get it in and then go out there and live it out. You're the people I should be giving the majority of my bandwidth to. And so we will. I want to talk about who we are. Not necessarily who we are not. There's room to do that. When we talk about cults, we'll talk about what we are not, which is, wait for it, we are not a cult. But I think it's at least as profitable, at least as helpful and instructive to talk about who we are. You know, while I was doing the research on cults and writing down some preliminary notes, you know, you can't do that for 24 hours straight, even though, I tell my leadership team that's what I'm doing, but even they know. When I am writing, there are times when I take breaks. Of course. A lot of the time, the breaks is with really low sci-fi old school video games. Yahtzee. I like Yahtzee. I do. You would think I wouldn't because I'm really not a numbers girl, but I like Yahtzee. And I also like, there's this game where you make numbers into bigger numbers. Like, you put a 2 on top of a 2 and it becomes a 4, then it becomes an 8, then it becomes a 16. I can do that a lot. And it allows me, while I'm doing that, my brain is also going in other directions. And at first I was really guilty about doing those sorts of things. And then I found out that some very successful business people do the same thing. They do a mindless task and then they're allowed to think of other things in the back burners of their mind. Another thing that I've been doing, particularly since Mr. Warner, is I have been watching some TV, which is not something I always do, but I actually watched or have been watching 2 shows in particular. One is a confection, junk food, if you will. And the other one looks like junk food from the surface, from a distance, but actually has some really important things to say to us if we allow it to. The one that was pure confection was part 2 of Emily in Paris. You got to look at the Eiffel Tower, you got to watch people wear some really interesting clothing, and you got to see what Darren Star is thinking about these days. It's a Darren Star production, and how far away he's come, or not, from Sex and the City over 15 years ago. The short answer is not very much, but there, as always, there are things to learn, even from the most innocuous and the most frivolous of shows. Let's talk about this one for a minute, because I think that this show is very much or can be very much an instruction on how not to be, the community that we are not forging. And yes, I know, not 4 minutes ago, I said that we were going to talk more about who we are than who we're not, but sometimes it's good to have a touchstone about who we are not before we can pivot over to who we are. Emily in Paris was fun. But you know me, I'm going to look at things with the critical eye. I'm going to look at how characters are portrayed. I'm going to look at how representation is portrayed. And while representation is important, and there are a lot more black and brown and Asian faces in this show than there was in Sex and the City, not all of it was particularly positive. But what I cared most about was the community that they presented to us. What does it look like when these pretty people in interesting clothes have conflict? What does it look like when they are forced with moral and ethical choices, as Emily and her colleagues were in that show? What happens when there is a fissure in a relationship, a break in the relationship? How do they, or do they at all, do the work of repair and reconciliation? The short answer is they didn't, not very easily and not particularly well. There was a lot of sarcasm, a lot of punching down, including to Emily. In the name of humor, and also in the name of this is just how the French are, they punch down. They make you feel small. And while I was looking at it and looking at Emily taking the punches like a champ and also throwing some of her own, I was thinking, wow, this is fun to watch. I don't want to be in Emily's Paris. I don't want to be in Emily's Paris. I do not want to carry a $5,000 handbag. I do not want to wear 6-inch stilettos and walk 10 blocks. I do not want to wear a cute little hat tipped to the side. I don't want that. What I want is this. I want a community where I can be myself, where I know that people will hold me well during good times and bad, that they are not there just to succor and be fawning to me, but that I am cherished in all the ways that we mean cherished. I'll tell you where I'd like to be. I would like to be in Serenity, South Carolina. There is another show that entered into its second season, Sweet Magnolias. And at first, this time a couple of years ago when it first came out, I resisted that show like you wouldn't believe. I thought it was just going to be like another Hallmark movie sort of show where everything is neatly tied up at the end and everyone's super pretty and the streets are always clean and your latte always has just the proper amount of foam. Serenity, South Carolina is a lot like that. But it is not at all saccharine. One of the things that I noticed in Emily in Paris was how unrealistic it was. And it was meant to be unrealistic. People, even in Paris, I am sure, are not going around buying their daily shop looking like they're about to go to New York or Paris Fashion Week. The people in Serenity, South Carolina, well, they look good too, in almost a traditional Southern kind of way. They've never met an A-line skirt they didn't like. They've never met boots they didn't like. The men are all well-groomed and in either perfectly pressed polo shirts or perfectly pressed button-downs. There is conflict in Serenity. But there is a difference between, and I'll say this about Serenity, it's also somewhat sugary sweet if you only look at the surface. But I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't saccharine. There was an article that was in Salon.com that was talking about the second season of Sweet Magnolias, and they were talking about the fact that there was no conflict in there, that even when there was crossness or if there was a teeny tiny hint of conflict, it was over in a moment. That everyone assumed the best of each other, and even the funky people had good qualities, and the good people had funky qualities, and that just put that writer on tilt. I loved it. In order to talk about Sweet Magnolias and then pivot to Lace on Race, we have to talk about what's usually out there in the world. 35 years after the first John Hughes movies, where we all learned how to be detached and almost disassociated, where it was okay to not only punch up and punch across, but we learned that it was okay to also punch down. We learned the value of cynicism and a winking kind of knowing, never take anything too seriously, sort of everything is ironic, nothing really means anything. And when you see what looks like serenity, when you see what you see in Serenity, the sincerity and the earnestness, and people, despite themselves sometimes, doing their best to get it right, then nowadays that's just eschewed and poo-pooed as, well, that's not realistic. It can be. In Serenity, South Carolina, there is a lot of conflict. Very low stakes conflict sometimes, but also for any of us who are in inner ring or outer ring suburbs where everybody knows each other and where we put a stop sign is of vital importance. Some things that we might think of as low stakes really aren't. And in fact, I want you to think about your own life. If you're rolling your eyes at the idea that Serenity is all up in arms about a second coffee shop on the main boulevard, think about the things that your zip code, your planning commission, how you all talk to each other really are. When we talk about local politics, and by the way, all politics is local, it's easy to pivot to racial dynamic and how racial dynamic is all local. Let me tell you some things I love about Serenity, South Carolina in the show Sweet Magnolias that I loved so much because I've baked a lot of what I see in that movie into Lace on Race. I love that the three main characters, Dana Sue, Helen, and Maddie, know how to repair. The love is deep. It is visceral. It is durable, and it can be counted on. So even when there is a blow up, level 4, a level 4 blow up at Margarita night in one of the girls' houses, they remember who they are. They reach back into their history. And one of them, and apparently this is a tradition, whenever there's a big blow up between the three of them, whenever there is a relational fissure, there is a box, and one of them sends each of them, it's a box that you open it up and it looks like a magnolia, and there is a candy bracelet on it. Back in 2nd grade, when these girls first met, they had a big blow up, and the way that they made up was candy bracelets in the box, and nowadays as adults, in the box. And so they know how to shorthand their repair, reconciliation, and recommitting to each other. The author of the Salon piece said that was, they didn't even really have a conflict. They did have a conflict. And they kept on talking about what had concerned them. But what that box that looked like a magnolia with the candy bracelet on it, what that symbolized is, we are never going to leave each other. In Laissons Race parlance, we'll never leave the car. You will never have to worry about whether or not I will break connection with you. That means you can talk about hard things. That means you can disagree, sometimes vociferously and with great emotion. But there is nothing like having a heated conversation with someone who I know loves me and is committed to me, and more important, who loves the relationship that we are in and is committed to the relationship. Oh, we can talk about anything. We can talk about anything. Because I'm not worried that she's going to bail out of the car at 70 miles an hour on the 805. Let's compare and contrast that to Emily in Paris, and let's compare and contrast that to what happened last year and what happened right now with Daniel Werner. When people are just throwing rotten tomatoes on the rolled up windows of the car, like Mr. Werner has been doing, and like he's been private messaging people, and by the way, that's some dirty pool right there, Mr. Werner. There is no hope of repair. People who are standing outside the car throwing rotten produce don't want to complete the circle. There is no reconciliation to be had because there was no conciliation. We talk about reconciliation a lot, but that means that there needs to be a connection and a parity and an eye-to-eye meeting of two people, or of a person to a group and vice versa. Absent that, you're not really in relationship. Or you are, just in a bad one. I mean, Mr. Werner is indeed in relationship with Laissons Race. It's just a bad one. Let's pivot to who we are. We are people who desire and who value that circle. Connection. Moving to disconnection. Moving to work on repair. Moving to reconciliation. Moving to restoration of relationship, and then moving back to connection. Done well, this does not have to take years or months or days or even hours. It can take minutes. It can take seconds. But it takes two people or a person and a group that they're relating with to want to do the work together. When Dana Sue sent the boxes with the candy hearts, she was already wearing her candy heart when they all met and connected really fast. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. There's still a lot to talk about, but never doubt my love for you. Oh, you didn't even have to say that. Oh, but I did. Doing the work of racial justice takes that level of ethos, takes that level of commitment and relentless reliability. As we talk about cross-racial and cross-cultural friendships, one of the things that is an absolute ingredient, an absolutely non-negotiable standard, is that there is a floor beneath which we will not fall. Let's go back to 35 years ago and from the 80s on, this sense of ironic and this sense of nothing really matters and the sense of friendships are at best alliances or associations, that promises that you make can always be given with an asterisk and with your fingers crossed behind your back. But you don't have to mean it. Which is exactly what we saw last year for some of you. Commitments and love declarations that Mr. Werner is slamming me for now that ultimately meant nothing. If you are in the stands and you have been silent, how durable is that? How can I or the community count on that? And yes, it's an appropriate thing for me to say. I and the community counting on not just your eyeballs, but your engagement. I make very distinct promises to the community of Lace-On Race. Happy promises, happy obligations, happy duties. And by the way, those words, obligations and duties, when you look at, and I want you to go back and look at some links that I dropped out in the introduction to The Good Place, that Indigenous and African American and African traditions speak so much to obligation and duty. Those are dirty words now, like the way earnestness is a dirty word, or the way love without a hand tied behind your back is considered something that only hicks do. Well, you know what? It was a hick that started Lace-On Race. Me. I am not a cult leader, but I am definitely a hick. I have never made a plate of rib tips that I didn't like. You can give me sweet tea now with Splenda, don't judge me, but I will never say no to a glass of sweet tea. I love my collard greens. I love my cornbread, including the ones from Jiffy Mix. I am not above Jiffy Mix cornbread. So I am not a sophisticate. I never have been. I mean, my idea of sophistication is, winged eyeliner. I like the corny. I like the earnest. I like people going, have more pie. Mr. Werner talked about the cultishness of me talking about orangeade and orange trees and us having a shared language. That is exactly who we are. Mr. Werner is not wrong. And in a series of essays that you are going to see with from some of my leadership team, Julie and Laura and Kelsey, you're going to see what that has meant for them. I think one of the best things that I bring as a coach and as an addiction counselor is this. Yes, I've got the book knowledge. See, look, lots of books back there. But what I also bring is a wide eyes, not narrowed, not this flat affect face. No. I want the best for the people with whom I abide. That includes you. I want to give you my best. And that my best is considered cultish makes me laugh. But there you go. Here's something else that we are. Kind candor. We can say anything, just not in any old way. And I want to go back to Serenity, South Carolina, where everybody in that town, as idyllic as it is, where everybody in that town talks to everybody. Helen gives hard truths to Maddie. Maddie gives hard truth to Dana Sue. Dana Sue gives hard truths to Helen. And everyone in the town, at their town meetings and in their coffee houses and the spa and the football field and the baseball field, they all give hard truths to each other. And it doesn't matter what brand and shade of foundation they're using. That speaks to depth of history and depth of community. Last year I got into a lot of trouble by being very clear in my assertion that everybody can speak to everybody. I love that. I love that one of the 16-year-olds in my faith community can talk to me eye to eye, and I am not only obligated to listen, it is my job to listen and my privilege to listen, because some of the greatest wisdom comes out of people who are not yet old enough to drive. Trust me. I also look up with honor and respect to those older than me, regardless of ethnicity. The woman who sits on the coronavirus couch before you today is an amalgam of everyone who has poured themselves into me. Every Helen Espino, every Mary Jane, every Becky, every Aunt Kathy, every Madeline, every Pearl Hearts. I say no to no one. I do not disregard them or render them unqualified to speak into my life because of skin tone or lived experience. Oh no. In the world of serenity, which, in case you haven't noticed, is what I am using as a proxy for the world that it could be, that we could have. John Hughes movies, toxic irony and dissociation and aloof detachment aside. It is not cultish to say that we are these things. I want us coming at each other, wide eyes, shoes off, because we are on sacred and historical ground, doing work that will endure beyond generations. Let's go back to South Carolina. They care deeply about that stop sign that may or may not be put on that street, because they're not just thinking about themselves. They're thinking about 20 years and 30 years and 40 years down the road. That's a big deal. That's the high aim steering that I ask of you and of myself. The encouragement and the exhortation to be the people they were meant to be, the people they were called to be, the people that they say they want to be. You see this in the series a lot. I remember back when you said X. I'm here to remind you, just in case you forgot. That's not cultishness. That's Hesed love. The people of Serenity, South Carolina, know that they're not going to be around forever. And they want to inculcate and instill their values into those coming up, which is why they tell the stories, and why people listen to the stories, and why people talk about things that border on gossip, but is not quite gossip. I want that for us. There's no way that we can have an effective racial justice praxis unless we can take it into the small towns of America. We can take it into the pulpit. I mean, if we are not living it out in places that matter, in places where we have influence, in boardrooms, at the mayor's office, in town hall meetings, in the congregational pews, during margarita night, then what are we doing this for? If you feel that the world that I just described is not only possible, but viable, then stick around. If you, like Mr. Werner, think that the world that I described is dangerous, there's not much I can do with that. He says that we use a lot of catchphrases, and we do. I can see the same thing you did. I was given this cup a couple of years ago, and these are only some of the phrases that I use a lot. It's the house that love built. Keep walking. He had a lot to say about walking. Place of lumpy crossings. An invitation to lean in and to plant roots. New people doing new things in new ways. Kind candor. God is a black woman, and God is found in black women, and black women have embodied the image of God. And of course the last one, community. I want to put this back carefully because I do not want to break it. It's very precious to me. If you feel that the world and the community that I am inviting you into is not only ineffective, but out and out dangerous, I'll say what I said a couple of days ago. This place is not for you. But I want people offering me pie and accepting one of my orange muffins. I want people sharing their lives. I want people baring their necks. If this is something that you value, then we need to keep this space alive. We're going to talk about this in subsequent posts, but there will be more Mr. Werners. There will be lots and lots of people throwing tomatoes at your car. One of the reasons why I want to build a strong and durable community where you are not just willing to come, but eager to come, is because of the Mr. Werners out in the world that you will encounter. You will encounter them. If you haven't encountered a Mr. Werner yet, or the people of last year, then perhaps you need to double down in your praxis. Perhaps you need to out yourself more. If no one has been unkind to you for the changes they have seen in you that are threatening to them, then maybe it's time to do some reevaluation. Maybe it's time to look at your own ambivalence and avoidance. I want a strong community here, but not just for the sake of being a place where we all grin at each other. North Star, lessening and mitigating the harm endured by black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. We have a specific methodology on how to get there. We believe that racial justice is, before it is anything else, an inside job. We believe that racism and white supremacy are, before they are anything else, economic constructs. We believe that the way to get to Serenity, South Carolina, metaphorically and actually, is to live it out in different ways than we've seen out there in the last 35 years. It's okay to open doors for your neighbor. It's okay to insist that your neighbor get the last chocolate chip muffin at the bakery. It's okay to pay it forward for a latte. This neighborhood that I live in is so safe that I don't lock my doors. That sometimes I can even, oh, what did I do with my keys? What did I do with my keys? Oh, yeah, they're still in the truck. That's the kind of neighborhood I want for us. Last year, the people whom Mr. Werner is caping for made our living room in our neighborhood a less safe space. And we have worked very hard over the last 12 months to make it safe-ish again. For you, absolutely. For me, absolutely. And also for the silent people who watch every move we make. We're going to talk about this later, but I think that one of the most destructive things that happened last year and that Mr. Werner is doing right now is it is putting an absolute chilling effect on black and brown thinkers and public intellectuals. We've already lost so many voices over the last year. Not necessarily because of the malevolence that we have endured, but just because of white indifference. White people closing their wallets and turning on to something else, like, a channel devoted to sloths. There is one. It's nice. Watch it for 5 minutes and then come back and do the work. For every woman who has something to say, who is now reluctant to say it because they don't want to be locked and loaded upon, that's terrorism. And I use that word with absolute clarity and intention. That's one of the things that Mr. Werner is doing. It's a form of terrorism. Pipe bombs and Molotov cocktails are terrorism. That does not keep us from being the people we are called to be, doing the work we are called to do. I'm running a little long, but I want to tell you a story. I really hope my dad doesn't mind. 31 years ago, 1991, going into 32 years ago, my father had one of the worst times of his life. His wife, my mother, suffered a devastating aneurysm that turned into a series of strokes. And the technology wasn't as good as it is now, and they clipped the aneurysm, but they did some damage in there when they did. It was state-of-the-art circa 1991. It was probably very crude in comparison to what happens now. And he was at the Naval Hospital in San Diego, worried about his wife, worried about what he was going to do. My mother's back in the hospital after this year and a half of her being very touch and go. A year and a half that Holly knew about, by the way, before she did that. She knew my mother was in the hospital when she did what she did this time last year. Mr. Werner didn't know that my mother fell 3 times in 2 days and right now is being checked. Her brain is being checked right now at Balboa. So that's why I was at Dad's house yesterday. But he was telling me stories. And one of the stories he told me was during that time there was a gaggle of women, all of whom said they were friends of my mom's, but some not so much. And he heard them whispering, and one of them whispered, knowing he was in the room, "I bet that man's not going to be around. He's not going to stick around." What an insult to my father, who had lived by this time with this woman for 30 years. So I want you to really think about this. 30 years out of a 60-year marriage, he has been primary caretaker to a woman who was deeply impaired. Some years were better than others. But she never drove again. She never entered a classroom again. And there has been a precipitous decline in the last 5 or 6 years, in the last year and a half specifically. I could see the hurt in his face when he told me that. And I said, "Dad, do you think about that a lot?" And he said, "I think about it every day." And I said, why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to have to carry the burden too. I just said that I'm going to take care of my wife. And he did. So far, it's been 31 plus years, half of his marriage, in deep faithfulness and resolve and relentless reliability. My 85-year-old father, when she fell in the garage, which made them call an ambulance to take her to Balboa, couldn't lift her up himself. So he had to go next door and ask for help. And he watched as people got my mother up in a chair. And he was so apologetic to me about not being able to lift her. My own father had a stroke about 5 or 6 years ago, and this robust man that was out in his garden every day and fishing at Lake Havasu every weekend, well, he hasn't fished in 5 years, and his garden is fallow. But his love for my mother is not. You wonder where I get all these catchphrases that you see on the cup. I get it from my prickly pear, my curmudgeon of a father who knows what faithfulness looks like, and who his daughter, his youngest, Jan. You can use that one too, Mr. Warner. My father calls me Jan. Or Stinker. When I walk across the stage to pick up my Masters of Divinity in 4 years' time, because yes, I am going to do a program that will put some letters behind my name, so perhaps those like Mr. Warner who like to use his education to weaponize might give me a little bit of a break. But when I do, it would be so cool if they would announce me as Jan Watkins. I hope my father is going to be around to see that happen. I hope you will be too. And I hope you will take the lessons of Aunt Kathy and of Hubert Watkins with you everywhere you go. A better future, a better community is possible. And you have the capacity, volition, and agency to make that happen here in our online community of Lace on Race and taking it outside. What we're doing isn't cult-ish. It's also not magic. It is very simple and not at all exciting. We're not, and not glamorous. We're not carrying Prada bags and, I can't pronounce it, Christian Louboutin shoes. We're not doing that. We're putting on our sneakers and our Tevas, and we're putting on our t-shirts, and we're brushing our teeth with generic toothpaste, and we are going out and changing the world, starting with ourselves, starting with the community that we make promises to and with each other. And we gaze lovingly at the Mr. Warners of the world, whether or not he believes it, whether or not he feels it's credulous. We know it is. Yesterday, my dad hadn't eaten all day, so I took him a breakfast sandwich on soft ciabatta bread. He did not complain. Okay, well, he wanted mustard. But he was grateful for the meal. And as he wiped his face, Jan, that wasn't bad. That's the best you get from Hubert. That's high praise. I want you to get that from Mr. Hubert when you offer him your orangeade. Well, goddamn, that ain't bad. Would Mr. Werner call my father a cult leader? Would he call Aunt Kathy a cult leader? Would he call Mary Jane a cult leader? They are all up in this situation, and they are what I am giving to you. I'm not giving you anything particularly new, but I am giving it to you synthesized in a way that, if you do it, is indeed revolutionary. Mr. Werner will continue to throw rotten tomatoes. Keep walking.